Hogstyle.
Hello out there, Hogstyle Land. It is your host, Alex Zeese. I got Steve, I got Dave. We were all ready to just have a nice conversation, and then, 30 minutes ago, there were press releases, and then reactions to press releases, and oh my goodness, what's going on? Before we get into all that, uh, one, you guys, both of you, happy Veterans Day, since, that's 2 days from now? So
Yes,
happy Veterans Day to
Friday.
both of you.
And in fact, we're doing a little formation with all the flags at work tomorrow at Bowen, and
Oh
I
yeah.
had the honor of I'm walking with the Space Force flag.
Oh,
Yes, I put my hand up for that immediately.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
My nephew, on my wife's side, he's thinking of going from Air Force to the Space Force. So
I'm going to save my comments about this because I have a lot of them, and it's an entirely different show.
Well, I only have one Space Force joke, and that is, I've started to see guys wearing Space Force fatigues on the metro, and I'm like, if it's camouflage, shouldn't it just be all black? I mean, you're in space.
Black with a few white specks everywhere, maybe.
Exactly.
That's not a bad thought. Yeah,
it's my only Space Force joke I've written so far.
My thoughts aren't really a joke, and so I don't do that.
You and I have had serious discussions about Space Force. So yeah.
See, I'm just a big sci-fi nerd. I love everything about space.
Oh, yeah.
So when you have Space Force, I'm 100% in. I'm ready to roll.
See, I declined the whole participation in my local veterans thing. I was asked.
Well, I mean, but you also had a parade that you were already participating in this week down there in Houston.
I did not participate. So I lived in Houston. I worked downtown Houston. I was the only one remaining in my office at noon on Monday.
Right.
The reason for this is that the Houston Astros parade went through. And so what I did, I have my proud Houston Asterisks t-shirt.
Yes.
I hung that on my table that's facing my door, that's facing the door in my office, and held it there with my Dodger baseball bat.
Nice.
Yeah, I did that. And of course,
HR had to get involved.
No. See, some people don't notice it though, because they're just so preconditioned to seeing Astros. I had to explain it to a couple people. No, that's not an Astros jersey, dude. That is, read it. Tell me what it says.
Right.
I just said, congratulations on your first World Series victory.
Yeah. Yes.
And of course, I got a slew of, you're going to go to the parade or you're going to go to the parade. The guy next door to me who knows that I'm a huge Dodger fan walks in playing Queens We Are the Champions standing by my door, to which I had to ignore it. And because it's also one, you can't say anything about this year about my Dodgers that I haven't already said either. I went over this on IJB, I think. I could give you a objective argument that what the Dodgers did this year was the worst choke job in baseball history since 1906.
Wow.
So you can't offend me. The Dodgers choked.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Hey, and you always have Kirk Gibson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. One of the most famous. But see, all these meetings I sit through,
right?
It always starts off with, "How about the Astros?" And just to be a jerk, because that's the way I am, I always say something like, "Yeah, they're cheaters," just to totally throw the vibe off.
Yeah,
and that makes me happy.
Sure.
Well, coming from Philadelphia, I did hear some odd beating during the game when the Astros were up at bat and so forth. So I think they were still cheating. I think they were still cheating.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Absolutely. They just found another way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, cheating's a part of baseball. It's the best part,
Well, not when you're wiring up your hitters.
No, I know. Go back to the old school, like putting pine tar on your hands and throwing balls with it.
Well, it's like Alex Rodriguez used to talk about how he would, if he was on a runner at second, he could see the call. He said if he leaned one way, he was telling the batter it was this pitch, and if he leaned the other way. To me, that's fair. It's an observation. I don't say that that's wrong, but when you've got Jose Altuve not wanting to have his shirt ripped off because he's got a microphone underneath it, that's a tad bit too far.
Yeah, exactly. And look, Alex Rodriguez cheated in some other ways too, allegedly.
Yeah, he is 75% steroid.
Yes. It's just all water weight. That's why he looks like that.
Exactly. He's water. It's steroid weight.
Yeah, I know. Oh, man. All right. Do we want to talk games first or talk about this nonsense first?
No, we want to do the nonsense first.
All right. Let's talk nonsense. I was thinking we might touch on the whole, team owner sale thing a little bit more, but now let's talk about.
Well, there's not much to say new about the team owner sale thing.
Speaking, there was a new rumor of a new name that might be bidding, and that is the John Henry, the owner of the Red Sox, might be bidding on the.
Yeah,
Red
I saw
Skins.
that. The only thing I'll say to that is I can't remember. There used to be rules about owners owning more than one franchise.
Well, if I remember what they were, and I think it still applies, it's you can own an NFL team and another team, but they have to stay in the same city or something like that.
I can't remember. I'll try to look that up for next time.
Because Jack Kent Cooke had to sell the Lakers in part when he bought the Redskins.
Yes,
that was a big reason.
Yeah.
And that was all covered in show. What was the Winning Time?
That was a really good show. Highly recommended.
Yes. Yeah, I had to pressure you into watching that for a while.
I was afraid
I still haven't watched that yet.
I was afraid they were going to. Me as a diehard Laker fan, I'm not a fan now that LeBron is there, but that
was really your era. That was the era you loved.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was a fan because of Magic Johnson.
It's a Dave. You should watch it. John C. Reilly's hilarious throughout the whole thing, and it's done in like a very 70s blaxploitation style of cinema.
Well, the film, the actual film, the actual video looks old.
Yeah, it looks very 70s.
And I didn't realize it's like they portrayed Pat Riley as like this rube off the street basically. Yeah. He just doesn't. I never knew that about him because he looks slick and all that, but he wasn't. If the show is to be believed.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Let's talk about what's just happened with the Commanders here. At around 5:00 is when I saw it. I don't know if it came out a little earlier than that. The Attorney General for Washington, D.C., Carl Racine, his office put out a press release saying, we're going to have a press conference tomorrow about the Commanders because they've been investigating some of the allegations against the Commanders for the past year. No details what we're going to be hearing tomorrow, just press conference tomorrow about Washington's football team. A little bit later, about an hour later, the team comes out with their own reaction to the announcement of a press conference, going after the Attorney General, in what the thing that I think is rubbing everyone the wrong way. They bring up the whole, Brian Robinson was shot in D.C., therefore the Attorney General's not doing his job very well, and there you go. Which, safe to say, has been a misstep, judging by the reaction to people on social media. I've seen people call it the most classless thing the team's ever done, which is saying a lot. That might be a bit high. It is easily the most classless. It could be the most classless press release the team has ever done. It's just a cheap shot. Brian Robinson's agents come out and he's upset at the team for using his client this way in just trying to take cheap shots at their opponents. I don't know. I don't even know what you call this. It's not really an opponent. You're just taking a cheap shot at the Attorney General. So.
Go ahead, anyway. Dave. You look like you have thoughts to unload. I do too, but I will hold them in reserve for now.
I would agree. I guess that it's definitely not the worst thing that Dan and the team has ever done, but
it might be the worst this week.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's just absolutely amazing on what this man will do to continuously dodge any form of accountability for anything, push any blame off to anyone. And when something as serious as what's about ready to come out, I guess, tomorrow and what they've been investigating, stemmed off the whole House Oversight Committee thing, which I agree with you, Steve, is a travesty anyway to begin with. But you have multiple issues and investigations of various different things against you, and the only thing that he has done to this point is continuously say, I'm not the one at fault here. I have never been at fault here. We have other issues going on. Hey, by the way, we just got done having a player that was shot before the season started. Why don't you do your job and clean up DC instead of looking at our team? I mean, come on, man. Seriously? I mean, you're using Brian Robinson Jr. He went through rehab. He came through. Everyone did not even think he was even going to be ready to play at all this year. It comes with no structural damage in the knee. It's an absolute miracle if you believe in miracles, so forth. And he's gotten to a point where he's gotten past it. He's moving forward with his career, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, Brian, remember what happened about a month and a half ago? We're going to bring that up again. We're bringing it all right through for you to think about again. And it's just, come on, man, it's classless. It's 100% classless. May not be the worst thing he's ever done, but I mean, give me a break, dude. Just knock it off.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tacky to use Brian Robinson, in the statement for sure. But has anybody stopped to ask what jurisdiction the DC Attorney General has to look into anything? This is a team that is based in Virginia and plays in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly does the DC Attorney General think he's doing? It's not like Congress, at least as stupid as the committee is, you could. There's no doubt that they could subpoena who they subpoenaed and all that. The question really is, should they waste their time on it? But they have jurisdiction to do so. DC really has no jurisdiction in this at all. I don't understand why this guy's doing it.
I can tell you the two things that are being speculated as to what this is most likely about.
Okay, go ahead.
One, the Tiffany Johnson allegation allegedly happened in DC, so that would be. But he said, she said. It's
also not even a crime. The only arguable crime would be that he touched her leg under a table, which at most is misdemeanor battery, which is not worth an investigation. It's something that happened years ago. It's probably past the statute of limitations.
Absolutely, and I agree with you on that. Even though
that's
Dan's a scumbag if it happened. Yeah,
it's a total non-event criminally.
Right. The thing that it most likely is, in my opinion, from like just the speculation I've heard out there, and this one would make the most sense to me, is there were these rumors that the team's been withholding money from season ticket holders and doing kinky stuff to season ticket holders, and it could be a lawsuit about that.
And so that would have to be still, though. So that's a civil problem. If somebody has a cause of action against the team for that, it would be the season ticket holder, his or herself, not the government of the District of Columbia, because this is the government of the District of Columbia versus Washington. So correct. Are you going to dream up a criminal charge out of that? So let's pretend, for the sake of the argument, that Washington did it, because they probably did. They're a bunch of slime balls. So the allegation was that they took a long time to give refunds of deposits, right? That was that basic allegation.
They either didn't refund deposits altogether, or they took a long time. I think the worst one. Worst of the allegations was, unless you called, they never refunded your deposit.
Yeah, okay, but again, let's assume the worst for the sake of the hypothetical.
Sure.
What violation of DC law is that exactly?
So apparently the AG in DC, most of the stuff he actually has power over, he's limited in what he enforces.
Well, I know, that's my point. Yeah. That's my point. And this is.
But consumer protection, it does fall under his purview.
It does, but I mean, what's the damage? You always have to think damages.
Sure.
Again, it's lousy that they took forever to give season ticket or deposits back, and it's lousy they made people call. But at the end of the day, if they did it, what's the damage? Interest? A year of interest on $2,000. I mean, I don't understand what this guy's doing. And furthermore, I don't blame the team for putting out a press release because what's his name, Racine?
Yeah,
he started it. He didn't have to put out a press release on this. He's trying to get publicity for himself. That's the only reason why they.
Yeah, of course.
I think the biggest the biggest kickback was them having to use Brian Robinson Jr. and all that.
I'm getting to that. I agree. I don't blame the team.
But real quick though, wouldn't it tie to what the Federal Trade Commission found in terms of using multiple financial books and the financial statements being
that happened in Virginia, dude.
Yeah, that would,
and that still wouldn't take
DC wouldn't have any jurisdiction.
I mean, unless there's like a bank in DC that some of this stuff is running through or something, but even then you're talking about federal banking laws. I mean, I don't understand other than just he wants to get in on the Dan Snyder bashing action, which I don't blame him. And we've been bashing Dan Snyder for years on this show.
Right.
I mean, I get that part.
It's half our content. I'm not going to judge him for that.
Yeah, I know. But the whole thing is a publicity stunt on both sides. Okay.
Oh, sure. And
look, let me finish. And I'll shut up. I don't like the Brian Robinson part of it. And basically the argument more is a classic one made, which is why don't you pay attention to actual crime in your city and stop worrying about me?
Right.
And that's made all around the country. I've made that argument.
And that's fine.
In other settings. But the way to use Brian Robinson in particular is pretty tacky. But I don't blame them for responding. They just needed to have an actual intelligent person write the response. And the response should have been something like, Washington strongly denies that it's done anything wrong. And we look forward to being exonerated, something. That's what they should have said.
I have their full response here. It's 2 paragraphs. I can read the whole thing if you. All right. Yeah. So here's the full thing. And, I hate reading things in public, but I'll stumble through it.
You want me to read it?
No. It's fine.
I mean, can you not read?
No, I can't. I just don't like reading out loud. It's a thing.
Okay. I'm with you on that one, Alex. I'm with you.
Less than 3 months ago, a 23-year-old player on our team was shot multiple times in broad daylight. Despite the out-of-control violent crime in D.C. today, the Washington Commanders learned for the first time on Twitter that the D.C. Attorney General will be holding a major press conference to make a major announcement related to the organization tomorrow. That's paragraph 1. If they had just done paragraph 2 here, which I'm going to read, I think it's fine. The Commanders have fully cooperated with the AG's investigation for nearly a year. As recently as Monday, a lawyer from the team met with the AG, who did not suggest at that time that he had intended to take any action and, in fact, revealed fundamental misunderstandings of the underlying facts. It is unfortunate that, in his final days in office, Mr. Racine appears more interested in making splashy headlines based on offbeat legal theories rather than doing the hard work of making the streets safe for our citizens, including bringing to justice the people who shot one of our players. If they'd just done that second paragraph, maybe without the last sentence, it's a non-story, right?
I think even the last sentence is fine because having been someone who worked in a district attorney's office, not nearly one as big as what DC most likely has, but there are limited resources, in there. Sure. You can't investigate everything. And so to make the point of saying maybe you need to focus on real crime is a legitimate point to make. Just they did it in a horrible, tacky way.
Right. But like I said, if they had just kind of left that first half out, no one would be upset. Sure. Yeah.
Would have been
you know what they say when you write any kind of speech or you're doing anything, the first few minutes, the first few lines of anything you write is what captures any audience.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they did. When you read the very first few sentences, you know exactly what they're getting at. So it was like the focus, the focus scene more on, we had a player named Brian Robinson Jr. He was shot a few months ago. That's not what it should be. Like Alex said, that second paragraph is all you really needed. If they came out and just said that, that's fine. That's cool. That's no problem. I don't think you probably still have some kickback a little bit because it's just them trying to play offense here against, whatever. But it's it's just that first part. And that's what every complaint that I saw from like your Field Yates, the local the local and other national media and even all the fans. That's all it was. It was, why did you have to go in depth like you did with Brian Robinson Jr., including Brian Robinson? Dude, just stop. You don't need that part, and you never needed that part, just like what Alex said.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's I mean, it's a stupid thing to do. The much bigger story to me is what the heck are they investigating? That's far more interesting to me than a poorly worded statement.
Thing to me, the press release about them doing an announcement, it's so broad it could have been about Brian Robinson. Honestly, it's just like, hey, we have a press conference because they caught both the guys who shot Brian Robinson in the last week. It was two kids who. Oh, and by the way, this is something I didn't know. If they were adults, wouldn't fall under Carl Racine anyway. Apparently, that would fall under the U.S. Attorney for D.C.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. I mean.
There's very weird lines in DC between what the DC AG handles and what doesn't get.
Yeah, and I think it probably depends on where it happens and
too,
but I don't think that's it, because this statement from Racine,
right, in all likelihood,
clearly says team.
Yeah.
If it was about
a class action thing,
if they wanted to have a press conference about Brian Robinson's attackers, they'd say it like that.
Yeah, probably.
Washington Redskin or Washington C-words, running back, the attackers are, running back Brian Robinson been caught, and, we're going to have a press. I mean, it's probably, I don't know. That's far more interesting to me as Mr. Lawyer guy than this statement.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't expect anything better from him on a statement. I mean, they routinely screw all this stuff up.
Right. But this one is pretty bad.
Now, would there be something, because I know what you're saying with them being out of jurisdiction with the two financial books, all that stuff and everything, but in your history of dealing with these kind of like with finances and contracts, stuff like that or whatever, do you think that there's something they could have stumbled upon that the team tried to hide, or they didn't realize that maybe they discovered that would fall under jurisdiction of the federal government like that? I don't know. I'm just kind of curious.
Maybe there's records that are maintained in the District of Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, off the top of my head, maybe there's that. Maybe Alex is right, that it's a season ticket, something to do with season ticket holders, and the season ticket holders were in DC, and so the wrong citizens are in DC, and every district attorney's office has got a consumer protection division in it, and maybe it could be that. So I just think that's kind of a low level thing. If it wasn't washed, the idea of the crime being you guys waited to give refunds.
Right. Well, and we don't know. We have no idea.
I'm very interested. I'm not interested to hear political grandstanding at all. I'm not going to watch this press conference or whatever it is, but I do want to see what the allegations are.
Sure. I mean, look, if it's something totally out of left field and it's like a shocker of all shockers,
and listen, speaking on behalf of Chris Larry, #content.
Right, exactly.
Yet another IJB episode is booked.
Yes, and like I posted on our Twitter, just another reset to 0 days without embarrassing the fans. Like we're just gonna. I just made that into a JPEG, and I'm just gonna repost it now every time.
I haven't seen it.
It's just a text JPEG image that says in red or burgundy and gold, 0 days without embarrassing your fans.
Happens every week.
Yeah.
And see, and that's the thing too. Right now, we're at a point as a fan base, man. It's just, for as little as it may seem in terms of how they talk, it's just every week for how many years. It's just a little thing here, a little thing there. It's always just something. It's like, come on, can we just not go through a full season just normal, like any other normal franchise? Just
they can't ever just be normal.
So it's just fatigue.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I'll point out, I love following the Dan Snyder's yacht guy who also tracks his airplanes.
Uh-huh.
The airplane obviously carrying Ron back from his mother's funeral. It's still been in the air when all this happened. So he lands and all this nonsense is like right at his doorstep.
He had to know this was coming though, right? When you sign up with Dan Snyder, don't you know a morass of you have to wade through a morass of stupidity? I mean, shouldn't you expect that?
I would think so, but
actually, I would say this time under Ron Rivera has had so much more activity in terms of off the field issues, and we've had it because usually it'd be like just one or two things you had to deal with most of the year, kind of off and on. And Bruce Allen did what he did to kind of play his little political game on the side to keep as much of it quiet as possible. But now it just seems like it's just every single week since Ron Rivera has been there.
Well, like I said, you got to listen to the IJB episode, Dave, if you have time, because we really went into detail about how the walls are really closing in on it from a bunch of different sides, and that's kind of what's happening. I would have given anything to be a fly on the wall when Bruce Allen was in that building, just to see how he acted. I can tell, I've said this before, but in the NFL building I was in, never saw anything like that.
No.
Never saw anybody playing, grab ass with secretaries. Never saw anybody acting inappropriate. I mean, the most inappropriate thing I ever saw happen was the marketing guy slipped a swimsuit calendar in front of a opposing counsel to distract him, which was pretty funny, and it actually worked. But beyond that, I mean, that did happen, but I'm being facetious. But I never saw anything crazy like this. Never saw any women who appeared to be distressed. Never saw anybody playing golf and doing shots in the hallway. The owner was never there, because he had actual real things to do, not hang around a football team all day long.
So he never delivered vanilla ice cream to anybody?
I never saw anything like that. No, and I have been in that locker room. They took me through that locker room. Never saw anything like that. But that owner, again, had things to do. Dan Snyder doesn't have anything to do.
No, he doesn't. All right, why don't we change gears? We got to cleanse our palates a little. Let's talk about last week's game.
Oh, that stuff's right up my alley, man.
Yeah.
That gets me energized.
Yeah. But we do have to talk about that loss to the Vikings. Probably the first real heartbreaker, it feels like, of the season, because it felt like Washington had this thing in hand.
I'd like to point out that both Dave and I which one of you predicted a win?
I predicted a win.
Yeah, it was Alex, and I hit it almost exactly because I said 24-17. I think you might have said 2017.
We were both around there. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go back.
I was rooting for the touchdown by the Vikings at the end, so my score would have been exactly right.
Well, for a little bit, I was feeling myself for a little bit, thinking, you know what, this show's going to be fun for me. It's going to be fun for me.
Oh no.
Yeah, here we go. I'm just a black sheep.
You got to come around to my side, Dave. It's really liberating,
All right. Well, why don't we start with talking about how the offense is played and continues to play. Very slow starts.
Quote unquote.
Yeah. Yes. Very, very slow starts, through these games. Then they get hot for a little bit. You think things are going well, and then they tend to taper off towards the end again. We had 1-2 game-winning drives that they mounted in the very last seconds the last few weeks, but nothing like that this week.
Well, look, Washington still inhabits ranking number 32 as measured by scoring percentage.
Yes, I know. 25.9%. I was looking at that today.
Yes, that ought to tell you something. Look, I mean, you can blame Taylor Heineke, you can blame Scott Turner, you can blame the offensive line, the running game.
I do blame all these things.
That's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, none of them are very good. They have some scattered talent, for sure. Terry McLaurin's a talent. I kind of come around, and I don't think he's a top 5 receiver, but he's a quality receiver. He needs to do better against elite corners before you're going to sell me on that again. But the running game sucks donkey balls. Terrible.
Curtis Samuel, talent.
But he's not not a two running backs are both averaging under 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Taylor Heineke's Taylor Heineke, and Scott Turner's play calling's wacky, but it's a combination of many different avenues of suck. That's where you end up with. So I don't know why anybody would expect any different. I mean, it's like saying, if I was only taller, more athletic, and could shoot a basketball, I would be in the NBA. Right. That's sort of what's going on with the Washington offense and the fan base right now, I think.
The wild thing about the number you mentioned, Steve, that they've got the lowest scoring drive percentage in the league, they're still top 4 in terms of offensive plays, like just plays run.
Yeah, what does that tell you?
Yeah, right. Like not a lot going on these plays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which just makes it even more depressing. Like obviously they're playing. Keep your offense out there, keep the other guys off the field as much as possible to help the defense.
Well, since you brought that up, by the way, Alex,
sure.
Washington is averaging 4.9 yards per play, which is ranked 29th.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It's impressive.
That's impressive.
It's impressive that they've done that while still being, towards the top of number of plays.
So let me give you guys a couple stats since we're supposed to be talking about the Vikings.
Sure.
So the highlights.
All right.
Taylor Heineke's quarterback rating 77.8, which stinks by NFL standards. Brian Robinson 3.4 yards per attempt. Antonio Gibson 3.3 yards per attempt.
Mm-hmm.
That stinks. And then in terms of receiving, Terry McLaurin 5 for 9 targets, meaning 4 got broken up.
Yeah.
Only averaging 11 yards per reception, which isn't good by ex-receiver standards.
No.
It's okay, but it's not great. Curtis Samuel, 3 for 65, 4 targets. Maybe that'll get him involved more. Who knows?
Well, let's be fair.
One was that 49-yarder.
Yeah.
True.
That the ref helped him with.
So,
by the way, I Googled it. I'm pretty sure because it would have been the back judge of Jerome Booger's crew, right? So that's Steve Patrick.
The extra defender on the extra offensive blocker on the field.
If I'm correct that it's the back judge, that would be Steve Patrick.
That might be my vote for most lucky touchdown of the 2022 season that I have seen.
It might be play of the year, honestly.
Because that's just like Taylor going,
right.
Oh my God, chuck it up there. Somebody catch it.
Right.
And
then
the
might
idea
be ball worthy.
And right in the middle of 3 defenders with the referee acting as the lead blocker. I mean, that's unbelievable. But we have to play my game.
What's funny too is that there's actually a camera angle that's like kind of off onto the side where it looks like the ref was actually making a beeline
he really does.
actually block him. It's
I haven't
funny.
Seen that.
Yeah, it's great.
And of course, we have to always play the game. While I'm thinking about it, did Tressway out punt the offense?
So I know because I have the numbers in front of me for at least what we've done offensively. Yeah. I don't have Tressway's number. I'm just going to boldly say yes.
I think he easily cleared that.
Yeah.
Actually, the offense barely outgained Tress.
Really?
Offense had 263 net yards.
Right.
Tress was 5 for 240. Because didn't you have a touchback in there?
Yeah. So the first punt, I can't remember who it was that screwed it up, but it was a dead ball punt. It was going to die at like the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was Danny Johnson.
That was Butler. That was Percy Butler in the end zone.
Percy Butler, thank you.
Yes.
Knocked it into the end zone.
That one did him in. If that hadn't happened, Tress would have had the crown.
Right. Yeah. Just Percy Butler. And also, you're hurting Tress's overall GOAT numbers right there. Because he's like, leading the league in punts down to inside the 1.
Yeah, he is. But for those of you voting, he's actually just in the middle as measured by yards per punt.
Yeah. But I measure by.
I know, and I agree. But the average Pro Bowl voter is going to see 15th. He's in the middle.
Right. Yeah. And they're just wrong because people don't appreciate, a good down punt.
But anyway, so in terms of Washington's offense, I don't know. Pazza Armani Rogers, when he gets his one opportunity a game.
Oh, that was a fun little run he had.
Yeah, it was.
He like jumped over a guy, then did a spin move.
But back to the important question. It's why does Taylor Heineke look so mediocre at best, and then for a quarter he rises up from the dead and looks like a Hall of Famer for about 2 series? He has a history of doing this. The reason is he's inconsistent.
Sure.
He's not a great quarterback.
No. Sure.
That's why, he throws a lot of dumb balls. He's fiery. He's likable. He's charismatic. Right. The players love him. But at the end of the day, the guy throws questionable passes. He got really lucky with the touchdown, as we said. Mm-hmm. The interception was just a terrible read. He had wide open underneath in the left flats. What did he do? Overthrows somebody in the coverage, interception. I mean, that is Taylor Heinicke. That's what you get when you have to start a backup.
Yeah. Well, what? He has 25 turnovers in the last 18 games.
Yeah, you put that in your column, Dave. That's out Tuesday.
It's insane. Yeah, and even earlier today, Alex and I were talking with John. Scott Turner's burner account on Twitter today.
No, that's John. He's our old co-host.
Is it?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But what happened? I don't.
But what happened? He was making a point on how we can blame, how anyone can just solely blame Scott Turner and his offensive coordinator for all the woes and problems. And it's like, this is all Ron Rivera's fault. Ron Rivera makes the final decision on everything. He overrides everything. I'm just like, so I was just reading this back and forth, and I'm just, stop. But the one point I made you could blame Rivera on is how he deconstructed this line and just completely put together a useless line in front of him. That's about it. Outside of that, Scott Turner still needs to make the adjustments to definitely the weakest point of that whole offensive unit, which is their line. He doesn't make the necessary adjustments. His plays take too long to develop, and when you have the bad Heinicke like you had on Sunday, combined with the fact the offensive line not giving you any time at all, and then you want to call these plays with very little misdirection. And when they utilized some of it, they were moving the ball, but then he gets away from it. I mean, that's not Ron Rivera's fault. Ron Rivera, just like what Alex said in the conversation, Ron Rivera's a defensive guy. He's putting everything on Scott Turner to develop a game plan, come up with the scheme that's going to work, that's going to move the ball, that's going to score touchdowns, and he doesn't do that. And when he does make adjustments, the offense moves smooth. They move down the field. Even with Heinicke, they do well. Not great, but they do well. Sure. And when they do well is when they get Curtis Samuels more involved, whether to give him the ball or not or whatever. And he just doesn't do that on a consistent basis. So it's like, yeah, sure, okay, let's not blame Turner on everything, but Turner gets the responsibility on most of it.
Hey, he's a part of the problem.
Sure.
What are the strengths of the offense? Terry McLaurin, John Dotson. There's your strength of the offense.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, it's a bunch of Gorick.
Actually, to me, I think your catalyst in this offense is Curtis Samuels right now, because with that offensive line, you have got to get him moving all over the field. You got to force that defense to respect wherever he goes. He has to run the ball. He has to have on jet sweeps, give him the ball in between the tackles once in a while. You use play action and move the pocket to the outside or something. He doesn't do any of that. And just like what I said earlier, when he does do that, the offense moves the ball pretty smooth. And I think Curtis Samuels right now is the one piece that is going to is going to give this team a shot, a chance to maybe make that final wild card spot, which it's going to be a stretch to begin with anyway. But now they have that seventh team. Now you're going to have one team that's going to be under 500 and make the playoffs in the NFC. And that could very well be Washington, but who knows? But you got to get Samuels more involved.
They've backed into the playoffs just 2 years ago.
Yeah, they did. The thing about that conversation with John or Kelly, whatever, I don't know which he's using as his handle anymore.
I think it was John. Kelly. He said both John and Kelly publicly.
Yeah, he switched back and forth on our show too.
I'm gonna go roll with John.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he's got this philosophy he's trying to live by now, where he just doesn't want to be negative about the team ever.
That's no fun.
Yeah, I know. Look, he's doing what he needs to do. To get through. He's going through some very serious stuff in his life. Yeah.
I'll apologize for calling him a burner account for Scott Turner. I had no idea.
Yeah, no,
that's my bad. That's my ignorance right there.
That's all right. You're still new to the cast. It's okay.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, look, the argument was all about why aren't they making adjustments? You obviously don't have a good offense, and I don't know what adjustments you can make to automatically make it a good offense. My big thing was obviously your O-line is garbage. I would run quick passing plays. I would use a fullback and a tight end to block instead of just trying to rely on these, 5 subpar O linemen, which Scott Turner doesn't do. I mean, you know what my biggest indictment of Scott Turner is, and this has been a problem all year? Your first 15 plays are supposed to be scripted. You should get the most out of those 15 plays than what you get out of the rest of the season or the rest of the game.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, the players have to execute.
Yeah,
and they're not executing. But I do think.
But are they not executing because of them or because of what they're being told to do?
Well, I think that Taylor Heineke is best served when he is allowed to roll out and move a lot.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But that having been said, his mechanics are so wacky sometimes that that's when things go horribly wrong. But I don't think he's a very good 7-step drop, stand in the pocket type quarterback.
No, because he's 5'10".
He's like, you know what he is? He's like your ultimate 7th grade playground quarterback.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he is, and you gotta let him play like that to be effective. That when he has been effective, that's when. So I think you do that more. If you did, that would be better, particularly with a weak offensive line where he can kind of move around and get out of the pocket and not let his guards get crushed and all of that.
Right.
That's pretty much exactly what he did in that playoff game against Tampa Bay, wasn't it? That gave him. I mean, that's exactly what he was.
Yeah, he was. Better O-line, though, to help protect him.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
All right, so we talked about the offense. Defense played great. I think we could just say that right off the bat. I didn't keep track of the exact number, but I counted at least 10 tackles for loss through the game for this defense. That's a pretty underappreciated stat. Not sacks.
Well, these was 13 to be in specific.
Oh, it was 13?
Yeah.
That's a really good day for any defense. Let's be clear. I know Benjamin St. Juste. Yeah. St. Juste got beaten up pretty well in the passing game.
Yes, he did.
He's going against maybe the best receiver in the league, but
and to put a stat behind that, Justin Jefferson went 7 for 115.
Yeah. 100. It was only 115. It felt like more.
It did feel like more.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think the defense is great. I mean, remember they got beaten fairly handily by better teams earlier in the year, and what we said on this show, at least I said on this show a week ago, was that the Vikings offense did not look like a high-performing 7-1 or 6-1 team. They had played a bunch of mediocre teams. They looked kind of like a mediocre team. I don't necessarily think the Vikings are the best test. The Eagles, which we'll get to in a minute, there's the test.
Yeah, no question there. The Eagles are going to be a stiff test.
Yeah.
Dave, do you have any thoughts on what we saw from the defense, or do you want to just go to game balls?
Well, for all those who said that pick 6 was a bad call by the ref, no, that was a good call.
It was.
I mean, granted,
it was. I hate it, but it was.
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, you probably could have gone either way with it, but it was the right call. But I will say, in a little bit of St. Juste's defense, though, outside that first drive, and you take away that one late pass to where Jefferson came streaking across the middle, and I believe St. Juste actually released off him, whether he was supposed to or not. And he had that, I think it was like a 42-yard reception, I think it was. So if you take that away, Jefferson was pretty quiet for most of that game. And St. Juste didn't let him get by him for the big play most of that game.
I agree with you on that, Dave. I think your burgundy glasses are shining through a little bit on that one. The man had 7 receptions for 115 yards and a touchdown. That's not a quiet day.
But I believe he had, I think, 3 of those receptions, and that touchdown was on that first drive, and then you had that one reception for 42 yards or whatever it was.
Just take away all the great plays, he didn't have a good game.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you still got to look at. I mean, he's still a young corner.
If you just take away all the bad, horrible parts on a 1976 Edsel, it'd be in a great car.
One thing I will say to defend St. Juice, who I don't think he had a great day, but after that pick six got called back, instead of getting down, in his own head, what's he do the next play? He comes up and sacks Kirk Cousins. I do like when I see a guy have a bad moment like that, he bounces back.
I'm not even trying to bash the guy.
I don't think you are.
He's, look, he's a young guy. He's newly promoted to the number one corner position, and it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's Jefferson is probably arguably the best receiver in the game anyway right now.
Certainly one of the top guys. And so it was never probably going to go well. And by the way, I put that in my game preview. Key to the game. Key matchup, St. Juice versus Jefferson, didn't go well for the most part. And I get what you're saying, Dave. I mean, because, Jefferson was silent for long periods of time. But the fact of the matter is he had those plays you're talking about were actually critical.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I get you. Yeah.
All right. Why don't we, because we do have to talk about the Philly thing. And, why don't we do our game balls?
Okay.
So I want to go first just because I had already picked this. Obviously, I'm giving one to Stephen Patrick, the back judge. And I guess that's an offensive.
Are you going to give him offense or defense?
I feel like that's an offense because Washington scored because of it. That makes sense, right?
That's a good
on defense, I'm going to play it straight though. Daron Payne, he had a great game. Sack, 4 tackles for a loss, 2 QB hits. So I'm going to just go Payne right there.
Okay.
I'm going to go John Allen on defense. I think those two in the middle are just really establishing who they are. And I referenced your article in my column today on terms of on what you can do in terms of signing all these defensive linemen.
I read that. Yeah, that was a couple years ago, but yeah.
Yes. So it can happen. Unlikely, but honestly, they need to figure out a way to making it work. They really do, because I think those two are really gelling together. And for the offensive side, I'll go with I'll just go with McLaurin. I think he was really the most effective player on offense.
Well, Justin Jefferson deserves a game ball. Offensive.
I knew you were going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on. I mean, it's 115 yards, 7 receptions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, game ball. And then the defensive game ball has got to be a Caleb Evans. No, I'm just kidding. This is tough. I mean, in all seriousness, though, actually, I am going to go Danielle Hunter. It's 2 sacks. Nobody on Washington's team really deserves a game ball on defense, I don't think. So I'm going with the guy who got the 2 sacks. So I'm going 2 Vikings.
All right.
This game. Justin Jefferson, Danielle Hunter.
Oh, it's sad because it's fair.
I know. I'm not being a jerk here. I mean, it's like, tell me, like even Dave, he's like, it's always decent. Given to John Allen is probably pretty fair normally.
Right.
But I gave it to him last week. They won.
That's fine.
The Vikings won.
Yeah.
And just think, after all I said about St. Juice, I give it to Jonathan Allen. Go figure.
I thought you would have given it to St. Juice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I will say, after the end of the game, I did post a kind of tongue-in-cheek thing about the team should fire. What's his name?
That was my one visit to Twitter, and I see this stupidity from Alex, who's coming from our Hogsty account. They need to cut John Ridgway. No, they don't. Yeah. He made a mistake. It was a bad mistake. He's a young guy. He's played pretty well otherwise. He's been a contributor to the team.
Nothing special there.
Well, but considering his role, he's done a pretty decent job at times. And no, you don't need to cut him. That's silly.
And the shame too is I went to reply to that. I said, and here you see the split personality of the Hogstein. It wouldn't even save for some reason. It said tweet wouldn't load. I'm like, this is perfect. Why can't I do this? Come on.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever.
Twitter gods are against us sometimes.
I had to respond from the Hogsty Twitter in my name that says Alex does not speak for the Hogsty on this.
Yeah, so that was a tweet I was going to follow up on.
People melted down on it. I actually found the fact that stupid thing blew up, and I had a tweet when Kirk Cousins got sacked and looked hurt. I just tweeted, Grant Paulson is flying down to the field. and that people loved that.
You know you love it, Alex.
Yes, people. There's a segment that will always love the Grant Paulson Kirk Cousins romance.
Man, that was brutal.
It is. All right, why don't we talk Philly Monday Night Football? I'm just assuming it's a massacre coming up.
Things sure to go wrong.
Yes. Yeah, because you know what always helps this team is when a bunch of nonsense off the field stuff happens as they're trying to get ready for a big game. And luckily that's not happening to Washington this week. But all right, Dave, you're up there in, Eagles country. Why don't you just tell us how bad is this going to get?
Well, I keep waking up in the middle of the night thinking of the Monday night game against Michael Vick.
Oof.
Now it's just I don't see. I got guys here who work that divisional game. No, we're undefeated. Anything can happen. I'm like, dude, stop. Anything might happen against some other team, but you're playing Washington this week. Trust me, that's not going to happen. I don't. It's just Jalen Hurts is playing an MVP level right now. That offense is clicking on all cylinders. Sanders is really starting to turn on as a running back now. That defense is just that defense. I think they're averaging like 15 points or something like that per game, the lowest.
Yeah,
lowest in the league or something of that nature. It's just, and they're fantastic against the run. They got probably the best tandem, the corners, and I mean, come on. I mean, we'll be lucky we even sniffed 13 points in this game, to be honest with you. So I mean,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So I'm honestly looking at the only reason why it won't be like a 49-13 type of game is because I think the Eagles will jump up so fast and so quick while the second half comes around. They're going to just play more of a preventative type of game so no one gets hurt and grind the clock down. So I can see like a 27-13 game, and trust me, it's not that close. That game won't be that close.
First of all, their defense is giving up 17 yards a game, or 17 points a game.
17, okay.
Yeah. And overall, they're 135 points, which is ranked fourth behind Buffalo, Denver, and Dallas.
Yeah.
I think Washington's problem here, I mean, there's a lot of problems, but
right.
The real reason why they're not going to be in this game at all, Philadelphia's defense actually does have a weakness. They're giving up a lot of rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense is surrendering 5.2 yards per rush, 971 yards on 188 carries against. That's not good, but Washington is a horrible running team.
Right.
Washington does not run the ball well. So if this is like a strength on weakness thing where Washington's running game could show that they could actually be productive, I might give this more of a chance. But here, that's when they have scored points, it's because Taylor Heinicke rises from the dead and does something miraculous, either by luck or by skill, one of the two. But their pass defense is not something to mess around with. Darius Slay is back there.
Mm-hmm.
For God's sakes, one of the top corners in the league. James Bradbury, another top corner, in the league. There's talent back there. And Terry McLaurin has been shut down in the past by Darius Slay. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. And so this is not a game that I don't think Washington matches up very well in terms of offense and defense. And in terms of Philadelphia's offense, historically, Washington's had a huge problem with quarterbacks that can move.
Yeah.
And that is Jalen Hurts' game. He's not that great a passer. He's okay. But
actually, this year he's been better. Been very efficient this year.
Yeah, he's been better, but I still wouldn't put him up there with, John Elway or anything.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, but his game is moving, and that never goes well for Washington. So I think this is not a good matchup for Washington. I thought the Vikings was a decent matchup for him, which proved to be true. This is not a decent matchup.
No. Right. So last time these two teams played in week 3, you mentioned the running issues. Washington put up 87 rushing yards. Not exactly a good day, not a terrible day rushing the ball, but like that's nothing special. And that's obviously it didn't get it done last time. That's not going to get it done this time either. I really, I don't see any real path to winning this one, like logically speaking. Hurts is playing lights out. That offense is just stacked. There's a reason that they're 8-0, and there's a reason that I think they're right now the most likely team to at least win the NFC, not
Absolutely.
just the East, the whole NFC. They look Super Bowl bound at this point.
Right? No, I mean for a reason. And in newsflash, they have played some good teams.
Right.
They haven't played all good teams, but they beat Dallas.
Yeah.
But they beat up on the teams that they should beat up on convincingly.
Right. Without the Steelers, they put it to the Steelers.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you, looking at their rest of their schedule, this team could easily go undefeated in the regular season. I mean, they have Washington, Indy, Green Bay, Tennessee, New York twice, Chicago, Dallas, and New Orleans.
I mean, they got to get past those division games. Dallas and the Giants.
Yeah.
I think New York will be tough because they're playing disciplined football, but
maybe. Yeah, but that if they can figure out New York, they have a very good chance.
Yeah, I think so. There's a shot at least.
Yeah. I don't see this being a close game. Honestly, this is going to be a turn it off after the first quarter type game if you're not one of us trying to do a podcast.
Right.
For the general public.
Well, give your game prediction, Alex.
Did you give it a number already, Steve?
Oh no, you want me to give a number? Okay.
Dave did. Dave said 27-13, right?
I don't think,
and it's not that close either.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to go as bad as Alex. You said they might, which is 40s. I don't think that's going to get to there because if you look at what they've done to other teams, they put up 38 against the Lions. They put up 35 against the Steelers. Mm-hmm. I think Washington's defense is at least better than the Steelers' defense. And so I'm going to say maybe 30-10.
30-10?
Eagles, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't give a number either yet, but I'm going to go. I mean, I think you guys are probably right in the right area that, high 20s to 30-ish. So I'll just go a simple 28, 4 touchdown for them. And I'm going to be generous, 14 for Washington. 2
touchdowns. 20. That's actually a lot.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns.
For this group of guys, it is, unfortunately. So the one thing I'm going to ask you guys, do you think we see Chase Young this week? They haven't made any announcements, obviously, at this point. But we know he's practicing again. This is going to be kind of week 2 that he's activated.
Yeah, so there's a window.
Yeah, 21-day window.
Yeah.
Correct. So basically, they could not play him again this week and start him versus Houston.
For the sake of me not having to rewrite a portion of my written game preview, I hope that they play him because I've already inserted that into the game plan into it. So I'm going to go yes, just so I don't have to come up with another one.
Okay, fair enough. Good reason.
I think we see him play more of like a situational type of, pass rush or limited, almost like a pitch count type of thing.
I'm not saying he's playing a majority of the snaps. I'm just saying, will he? Right. Will he see the field?
Will he be active? There's the question.
I think he'll be active.
First game back from this kind of injury, like, I don't know what the number is. If they're like, well, we're only going to play you 10 snaps, I'm fine with that. Whatever it is.
I think if you want what to look for out there, look for 2 things: burst and his ability to cut.
Yes, of course.
Those are the things, and because Chase does not have a good 40 time. He's not going to beat many people in a sprint, 40, but he has a lot of burst off the line. Mm-hmm. And so look to see if the knee has taken that, and then look to see how well he's cutting on his leg.
Especially with the brace. The brace also makes those things tricky.
So I would, if you Washington fans and Chase fans, if he can do those 2 things pretty well, he can get a sack or whatever, that's progress. But listen, Chase, this is year 3 for him?
Yep.
He's got to start producing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If he wants a huge contract, he may be headed for like the 5th-year option and wait and see land.
I think he already is, personally. Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here, we have to do our one non-Washington thing, at least.
This is on my insistence.
Yes. And you came to us with a good idea. Mid-season now. What are some surprises, good and bad, that we've all seen this year? What are those surprises? I got one off the bat that I was not expecting, and that is the collapse of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. They have just fallen apart, and I figured he'd hit a wall eventually, Aaron Rodgers, and the team would kind of just fall apart pretty quickly. Didn't think it would happen like this year.
While he was on the field.
Yeah. He's literally falling apart and just like ragdolling, right? I mean,
he's talking about taking ayahuasca and all kinds of weirdness. He's a weird guy.
Well, doing that off the field doesn't surprise me, but
he's just a weirdo. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's a weird guy.
Yeah.
For me, beyond the fact that the Eagles are 8-0, I didn't expect that. I'm surprised that the Buffalo Bills have kept it up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, sometimes teams that get to conference championship games, especially with, I don't think as highly of Josh Allen as others.
Sure.
I'm surprised that they look like one of the best. They might be the best team in the AFC. So that surprised me. And I was going to go with Green Bay as well, actually, because I'm surprised at that. I'm not surprised that Tom Terrific in the Bucks fell apart. When you don't participate in training camp at all, you've got just nonsense and drama going on in your life, and you're 45. None of that should surprise me. But I was with you. I thought Aaron Rodgers had something to prove this year, and it's just gone horribly wrong. So those two things. So Buffalo and Green Bay for me.
Well, me, I'm going to have to jump on one of my preseason, not favorites, but teams I was kind of really expecting a lot from were the Raiders. The Raiders are just an absolute train wreck right now. Darren Waller can't stay healthy. Devontae Adams is on and off again. I don't know. I don't understand what the game plan is. Hunter Renfrow, I mean, does he even suit up anymore? I mean, I barely even hear his name at all.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So it's like that entire offense. Like for the last couple of years, they had no idea how to use Josh Jacobs. They weren't using Josh Jacobs, and it's like this year, bam! Now they're using Josh Jacobs, and he's looking good, doing real well. But the rest of the offense around him is just doing absolutely nothing. And Derek, which is crazy, is that Derek Carr he's never been like an MVP kind of candidate. He was always right around that like the top 7, 9-ish type quarterbacks in the league. And I really thought with Devontae Adams coming in there, having Darren Waller, the chemistry he had with Hunter Renfrow and so forth, I really thought the Carr was going to kind of be like that sneaky, he's doing well enough for some kind of like MVP honor, just like we could talk about him. He won't deserve it maybe, but he hasn't even been anywhere near that quarterback. In fact, I don't even think he's even been a top 10 quarterback this year.
That's a good one. I hadn't thought about the Raiders. That is a good one.
Yeah, that just completely blew my mind. Now I knew their defense wasn't great, but the defense was typically right around like maybe 18 or 20. Not that offense is going to be more than enough to carry whatever that defense couldn't do, but that's not at all.
What about the Rams too? I mean,
I was actually going to get to the Rams next, actually.
You know what? Okay. The Rams don't surprise me too much because they've spent a fortune.
Sure.
And they're kind of building. It's those kind of teams can't sustain success. And then I thought it was really weird that Aaron Donald almost left.
Right.
It made me kind of wonder what the atmosphere was. And then you had Sean McVay was almost gone too. And it's like there's some
the offseason, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's just some weirdness going on in LA with the Rams. So the idea that they did not sustain their success doesn't surprise me. I didn't think I thought they kind of outplayed themselves last year anyway.
Well, I guess I'll jump on to something a little bit different then instead of the Rams. I can go with Mariota, and the Falcons have actually been a lot better than I thought. I thought this was going to be the point of the year where they're going to be like, okay, let's throw in Desmond Ridder and see what we have going through the rest of the year. But they've kind of held they kind of held their own. Granted, their schedule hasn't been super tough.
Right.
They beat the Niners, I think the Niners were pretty beat up at that time anyways, but still, they still beat the Niners. Came close to beating the Chargers. They were in it with the Bengals up until like the fourth quarter, and the Bengals just kind of pulled away from there. But it's they've been a pretty surprising team this year. I didn't think they'd do much more than maybe 2 or 3 wins all year, and they have 4 wins already. So, and they're pushing for a potential playoff spot.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss in not mentioning the Giants.
Sure.
Nobody thought the Giants would.
No, not at all.
There's no reason to suspect why they are good either. They're just playing well together as a team.
It's called good coaching.
Yep.
Disciplined football.
There you go.
That's the one thing that Dabo does exceptionally well. He did it in Buffalo. That's why Allen is where he's at right now, because Dabo played to Allen's strengths and formed that offense around him. That's exactly what he's doing with Daniel Jones. He's not putting Daniel Jones in position to lose the game. He's a really good coach. I mean, unfortunately, he's going to be against Washington for the next several years, and I actually argue he's probably the best coach in that division. Regardless of what they do in Philadelphia, it's just the fact of what he's doing with that talent in New York.
Right.
I think he's been head and shoulders above everybody in this division. I think.
You make a great point. I mean, because Daniel Jones is having good but not great numbers. Right. Saquon Barkley's really throwing it down. 4.8 yards per attempt, and they have a bunch of players who are good players but aren't killing it on offense. In terms of receiving talent and all of that, and defense. Nobody's putting up huge stats, arguably with the exception of Barkley, and they're just playing well together. I think it's exactly right. Good coaching, solid organization, got everybody firing on full cylinders.
Yeah, do you by chance have the numbers in front of you on how they are with penalties? That they're one of the lowest by chance in the league? I'm kind of curious.
If you give me a second, I can pull up no one from Tampa's penalty column, and it might be in there.
Well, while you're looking for that, I was just going to say, the way that Philly's built right now, and, obviously they're having success, it's very reminiscent of the Rams, though, where I don't think it's going to be as huge of a window with this roster. So, it could go south for them fairly quickly in a year or two. Once Hurts is looking for a big 100%. Payday, they're going to have to blow up that roster.
Yeah, because they're going to have to pay Hurts after this year. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
And if he keeps going what he's going, he's probably going to make up, maybe not Patrick Mahomes' money, but he's going to get pretty close to that.
Yeah. I will be curious as to see what happens with him, just because of what we've seen with Lamar Jackson's whole contract situation.
Yeah.
They're different. They're a little bit different, but they're both more mobile quarterbacks, and everyone's like, well, that's why they don't want to pay Lamar.
You can't really use Lamar's contract situation as a representative sample, though, because there's something very important, which is that he doesn't have an agent.
Right. I understand that is a huge aspect.
Lamar is his own agent. He's trying to save money. I get it, but he's just not equipped to negotiate against professional negotiators.
Wasn't his mom officially listed as his agent for a while or something?
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought there was something weird.
Dave, who'd you ask me about penalties?
About the Giants overall as a team. Where are they ranked?
Okay, they have 54 against, which is, let's see, 24.
That's pretty good.
As compared to Washington, which has 52, which is 21st, tied for 21.
Right. So, definitely a very well coached, disciplined team. So,
yeah.
And yes, you can hear the envy in my voice.
A little bit. I'm looking and seeing, is there anyone else who really surprised? Would you say Seattle? I would say Seattle's probably a surprise.
Seattle.
Actually, I think Geno Smith is a surprise.
Fair.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm actually happy for Geno Smith because he came off. It was a pretty rough start to his career. Yeah. And I think and he had a lot to do with it. He was very immature, and so forth. But he's really grown up, and I think he deserves an opportunity to be that team's franchise quarterback going forward.
Well, he's with the Jets. Like Jets is where if there's one place that's worse than Washington, it's the Jets. At least before this year, because it's where like careers go to die. And so Geno had a hard time, but as would anybody going to the Jets.
Yeah. Oh, was that the same year that the Bills drafted a quarterback in that same year who was supposed to be their future, and he busted too?
They drafted him back end of the first. I know you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't. It wasn't. And I feel, was that Terrell Pryor's year he got drafted too? There were a whole bunch of quarterbacks who were drafted. That was like a really bad draft class. I can't remember. 2012, 2013, or no, 2013 maybe.
It was. You want me to look it up?
Yeah.
You're killing me. I just the names are on the tip of my tongue. I know exactly what you're talking about with the Bills too.
Yeah.
Because I work around some Bills fans, and they were pretty hype about him initially.
Right.
Yeah, but he was a guy
all-time bad draft classes.
But Geno was 2013.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I'm pulling it up now.
I don't know if I care enough to keep people on the air.
EJ Manuel. That's what it was. EJ Manuel.
There you go.
Yep. Total bust. All right. Why don't we wrap it up? If we're now talking about EJ Manuel, I think that's the time to end the show.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on.
All right.
That's a good transition right there.
Yep. Again, happy Veterans Day to both of you. And
thank you, sir.
Yep. We will see you all next week. Later.
See ya.